Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are previewing the Chicago Bulls offseason, and this team's got a really big decision to make this offseason. And that big decision is who they're going to hire as their new head coach. They fired Jim Boylan after he had one of the worst coaching seasons that a lot of people can remember. He was probably the worst coach in any of the four major sports in the United States. The only person I can remember being that bad is Hugh Jackson when he was on the Cleveland Browns as their coach. So they're definitely going to be getting an upgrade no matter who they bring in. But I think a really good option for them could be Kenny Atkinson, because I just think he's a really good coach. He did a really good job taking the Nets from being a team in a similar position to what the Bulls are in now to being a playoff team. So I think that Kenny could be a really good fit for the Bulls. In terms of the draft, they have the fourth pick. At this spot, there's two guys that I'd really like to see them take. The first being Denny Avdija. I think that he's the most likely player that they will go with. I really like Denny. I think that he's going to be a really good wing player, a good scorer. Obviously, his three-point shooting could use some work, but his form looks pretty good from what I've seen, and I think that it'll come right along the three-point shooting, and he'll be able to be a league average plus three-point shooter. His defense also could get a little better, but the playmaking, the attacking off the dribble, he has a really nice handle. I think that he's going to be a really good player, and he is a good fit because he's at the position of most need for the Bulls at the 3, as Otto Porter will be expiring after this season, and I kind of doubt that he is a guy they have in their future plans, especially with how injury-prone he was this season. He was out for almost the entire season. It would just make sense for them to draft a replacement for him. And I also think that it's probably going to come in one of the best players available at this spot. Killian Hayes is another guy I'd love to see them take just because I think Killian is great. I think that he is the third best player in this draft. I have him fourth on my big board just because I think that Wiseman is maybe a higher potential guy than him, but I think that in all likelihood, Killian will end up being the better player. I know I haven't talked about the draft much, and I'm not a super big draft guy, but those are the two people that I really would like to see the Bulls go with, because I think that they both have potential to be really, really awesome players in this league, and the Bulls shouldn't really be thinking about position. They should just draft whoever they think is the best available and go from there, especially with the fourth pick. If they would have stayed at 7 or dropped down to 8 or 9, I would say, yeah, go with the best fit. But in this case, I think that they should just take the best option, and that is either Denny Avdija or Killian Hayes. If James Wiseman, Anthony Edwards, or Lonzo Ball falls to them, I think they would likely take one of those guys, except for maybe Wiseman, because they have a pretty solid front court for the future in Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter. But maybe if they're going to trade one of those guys, they could go with Wiseman. Otherwise, if Edwards or Ball is here at 4, that'd be amazing for them because those guys have potential to be really, really awesome players. Otherwise, they could trade up and try to get Anthony Edwards or Lonzo Ball. Maybe if they traded Thad Young and 4 and like Daniel Gafford, they could move up to 2 with the Warriors. The Warriors could use that trade exception. I think they would want to add a better player with that trade exception than Thad Young, but it's possible that that'd be something they'd be interested in doing, and they would also be getting the 4th pick, and the Bulls could move up to 2 to draft whoever the Timberwolves don't take between Edwards and Ball. Otherwise, they could trade down if they really like one of the plethora of 3-and-D wings in this draft, guys like Devin Vassell, Isaac Okoro, Sadiq Bey. If they like one of those guys, they could trade down to the latter part of the lottery. Or they could just trade the pick completely and go star hunting. Maybe Zach LaVine and the 4th pick could get you Bradley Beal. I don't think that that's the biggest upgrade in the world, but maybe it's something they want to do. They could throw a package together for Chris Paul. They could throw a package together for, I don't even know what other stars are there on the market. Especially not one that's worth the 4th pick like Al Horford, but you're not giving up the 4th pick for him. So there's some options for them in terms of trading that pick. They also have the 44th pick, and as I've said in previous videos, I like Paul Reed, Sam Merrill, and Emmanuel Quickly as guys to go in this part of the second round. With free agency, I guess trades, they could trade Zach LaVine, but I don't think that they're to that point yet. I think that Zach is a really good player, and there's potential that he could be the second or third best player on a championship team. So maybe they keep him around and try to start winning games with Zach on the team. He's on a pretty good contract, so I think that a lot of teams would value him, and a lot of teams would give up a lot of draft capital and young players for him. But I don't know. This could go either way. It mostly depends on where the management sees themselves. If they want to compete for a playoff spot, they should probably hang on to LaVine and keep him on the roster. But if they want to go further into the rebuild, which I kind of doubt they would because they haven't made the playoffs in like 5 years, but if they do want to do that, they could trade LaVine for a good young player and a draft pick, for example. Maybe the Nuggets would do it for Michael Porter Jr. and the 25th pick or whatever it is that they have. Although I think they'd have to add Gary Harris to that to make the salaries work. Anyways, free agency outgoing, they have 2 restricted free agents that they're going to have to make some decisions on, in Chris Dunn and Denzel Valentine. Dunn was drafted really highly in the draft, and they brought him over in the Jimmy Butler trade. He's a really good defensive point guard, or I guess defensive guard, because he hasn't shown the playmaking ability and the handle to play the 1 in the NBA thus far in his career, and he's also not a good scorer, so he's really just a minus on the offensive end, but he's one of the best defenders in the entire NBA, an all-NBA caliber of defender, an all-NBA defensive team caliber of defender, excuse me. I should probably say that instead of all-NBA level defender, because there's no way Chris Dunn will ever make an all-NBA team. But really good defender. There's going to be a lot of teams that are interested in him for that fact. Having a stopper like that can be really important in the playoffs, especially with the rise in some really good young guards we've seen. Guys like Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray. And then, of course, you have the great guards that we've known about. Kyrie, Harden, Curry, guys like that, Kemba Walker. So it's important to have a guy that can put the clamps on. And so lots of teams are going to be interested in Chris Dunn. Denzel Valentine is a wing that they used another either late lottery or right outside the lottery pick on. And he hasn't played great for them, but maybe they want to bring him back. I'm not real sure. I haven't seen a whole lot of Denzel Valentine. I just know that he hasn't played to the caliber you would want a guy who you spent a fairly early first-round pick on. Some targets I have for them, guys like Joe Harris and Bogdan Bogdanovic could add some really great offensive firepower and shooting to this team. They really don't have all that many great shooters. Lauri Markkanen has shown that he can be a really good shooter in the past, but shooting is probably a weakness for this team, and I think adding a guy like Harris or Bogdanovic could be big for them. The question is, would either of those two teams in the Nets and the Kings let those guys walk? Probably not. The Kings have made it pretty clear they want to bring back Bogdanovic, and Joe Harris is the biggest priority for the Nets this offseason, they've said. So that's probably not going to happen for them. They could also bring in a backup big guy like Aaron Baines or someone like that to be a better backup center than Daniel Gafford. So a potential 2020-2021 rotation for this team would be Kobe White at the 1, Zach LaVine at the 2, Otto Porter at the 3, Lauri Markkanen at the 4, and Wendell Carter at the 5. I think they're pretty locked into that starting lineup at this point with their whoever they draft, Danny Avdija or Killian Hayes, most likely in my opinion, as the 6th man. And they also have Sado, Thad Young, Daniel Gafford, Chandler Hutchinson, guys like that coming off the bench. So could this team make the playoffs next year? I think so. The Orlando Magic will not have Jonathan Isaac next year, and there's going to be trade rumors around Aaron Gordon and Nikola Vucevic all of this offseason. So I think that team will possibly fall out of the playoffs, and someone's going to have to step up and take that playoff spot. I could see the Bulls doing that. I could see the Hornets. I could see the Pistons if all things go right. I could see that happening for the Knicks. There's going to be a lot of competition for that 8th spot in the playoffs. The Wizards, of course, with John Wall getting healthy. So this team could potentially be a playoff team if they think they are. That's where they should definitely hang on to Zach LaVine. But if they don't think that they're a playoff level team, maybe they should trade him for some future value, especially because this team's got a really solid young core here in Kobe White, Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., whoever they take with the 4th pick. Like, that's a solid group that you can build around. Are any of those guys superstars? I don't think so. Kobe White showed flashes of being a really good player, and I would say that he is probably my favorite of their young guys. I like him better than Markkanen and Carter. But is he going to be a superstar? No, probably not. Maybe he can get to a guy that makes a couple all-star appearances, but not quite superstar level. And you need a superstar to win championships in the NBA. I mean, people are talking about how this year it's some of the weakest conference finals ever. But the Heat have Jimmy Butler, the Celtics have Jason Tatum, and the Nuggets have Nikola Jokic. Those guys are all superstars in the NBA. So in order to compete at a high level, you need a superstar. So the Bulls just need to figure out how they can get a superstar. Unless they believe they can develop one of their current young guys into that superstar that can lead them to a championship, then they just need to focus on building around that guy. So maybe a playoff run is in the cards for this team. Maybe it's not. But a lot of it comes down to who they hire as their head coach. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment on what you think about the Chicago Bulls and their future. Who do you think they should take with the 4th overall pick? Thanks for watching. That's it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you all again very soon.